What's going on, guys? It's Adam P and welcome back to Newcastle United News and welcome to Benidorm. Just look at this state of that. I've had two fantastic days out here in Benidorm. It was 28 degrees yesterday. Shorts out on the night time. You can go out, enjoy it, do whatever you need to do. I've had two amazing days out here, and as a content creator, believe it or not, this is actually my first holiday since before lockdown. My first holiday in 6 years that is not Newcastle United related. Every single time I go abroad now, it's always when Newcastle United is playing. So during this international break, I had the opportunity to come on holiday for a few days. I felt like, why not? It's a cheap holiday. It's actually surprisingly cheap for Benidorm as well. I know it's a cheap holiday regardless, but flights for basically nothing getting over here. It was a holiday where it was kind of like, I was almost wondering, why is it so cheap? Now I seem to know, because Storm Alice is hitting the mainland tomorrow, and you guys are going to have a field day watching this on the channel tomorrow, because I'm actually going to be going out and watching Nick Woltemade as, of course, Germany plays in Luxembourg. So you'll probably see me in the literal floods of the Benidorm strip. So you guys watching are going to have a field day. For me, not so much, because we've actually been advised by the Spanish authorities to not travel tomorrow. Don't go anywhere tomorrow. It's been described that we are expected to stay in the hotels, and it's actually been stated that extraordinary dangers is the word used by the authorities. And all joking aside, if you actually look into, of course, the Spanish floods last year in Valencia, there's over 240 people that were swept away and unfortunately had died because of the flood. So it's obviously someone you do have to take seriously. But as far as a British holiday goes, I certainly feel like I'm back home. So Benidorm has won in that respect. But yeah, it's been a disaster. It's been 2 good days out here, and then my final 2 days are going to be an actual serious storm where I've been sent the notifications, the emergency notifications on the iPhone. You guys might have seen the testers back home from the UK government. We've had the real deal to do. Actually had the real notification blaring out on the phone. So I'll shorten the screen here. You guys are going to enjoy the vlog tomorrow of me watching Nick Woltemade in an actual storm. But for today, yeah, it's just a bit depressing, it's fair to say, out here. I hope you guys are doing well anyway. If you are new around here, of course, make sure to get down there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what is going to be a bit of a mental Benidorm vlog. But I'm back home in a couple of days, assuming that the runway will be cleared up. I like to imagine that it would be, but a couple of days' time I'll be back home, and of course be back in the UK, getting ready for being back in the Champions League against Benfica. So make sure you don't miss out on any of the content, and let's head into the news. Starting off this video, of course, we just mentioned Nick Woltemade before. So originally at the start of the week, it had been said from Newcastle United that he has a flu. He will not be going out at all to the German national team. And Germany, during the week, had actually then had a conversation with Newcastle and being able to convince the player to make the travel out. And it's a bit of a nightmare now. I felt like Newcastle need to be firm on this, because in my indication, I never believed in this flu thing anyway. My indication at the start of the week was that Newcastle had put the foot down. Nick Woltemade, we're just going to say you got a flu. That's your excuse to get out of the Germany team. Of course, you don't have to declare that you don't want to be there. We're going to do this. We need you at your peak fitness. Wissa stood out for a decent amount of time. And it seemed like Newcastle had put their foot down and just said, Germany, he's not going. We need him now. And it's almost like it's hard to kind of looking, because it's hard to see which side has pushed to make this happen. My indications that the players wanted to go. That's the only way Nick Woltemade's heading out to the German national teams. If the player himself has told Newcastle he wants to go, and I feel like in his point of view as well, you could argue at the last international break, he's had a bit of a stinker. 2 matches where the German fans and the German media were heavily targeted towards Nick Woltemade. And even during this season, they've seen all the crap with the Bayern Munich owner just going into details, saying how he's such a waste of money. He was glad Bayern didn't make the purchase, and just properly slamming the player down, which is such a bizarre move around it, because then why would you disrespect and almost humiliate effectively your best German striker that could be a Bayern in a couple of years' time. I mean, there's nothing stopping this guy theoretically in 2 or 3 years' time if he wanted to go to Bayern. And why the hell would you insult him like that? I don't understand that at all. It's so unprofessional, and you essentially made an enemy out of a player who would have been happy going to Bayern a couple of months ago. And it's such a petty and horrible way of talking down to such a young striker who has actually overperformed. I would argue he's over delivered for Newcastle so far. He's been thrown in the deep end. The Worcester injuries forced him in, and he's been phenomenal. And to see that disrespect from the German owner, it's just mental. And that's the German media that have been relentless and they've been ruthless towards a player, which is quite harsh, because when you look at the German national team, I think a lot of players have stunk for them. I don't think Germany's been good for a good few years now, and they kind of pinpointed them a young German striker. It seems like a misguided touch from me, but the point I'm making here is that the player wants to make the point. The player wants to go out with Germany and to effectively shut everyone up, and he wants to be able to prove his point. And I can respect the player for that, and we are not allowed to say to the player, you're not allowed to go out of Germany. But unfortunately, we could see the repercussions, and it's not even just if he gets injured as well. If he doesn't play well for Germany, he's going to be a bit deflated coming back over to Newcastle, because again, the German media will be ruthless towards him. So it's not even whether or not the player gets injured, because that's your first major concern. Your second major concern, will he come back and be ready to go straight away? Because he's going to have a couple of rough weeks out there if he doesn't click for Germany. He's already seen at the start of the window what happens when he goes out in duty and how the German media can be quite negative towards him. So if he does that now and drops a stinker, the media's going to be even worse towards him. And it just seemed like me, he should have just kept him out. I find it hard to criticise Newcastle, because I think Newcastle has tried to keep him here. I think the players then made the choice and said that I wanted to go out to Germany, and he's been able to convince Newcastle and Germany to make this happen. And I just feel like it's the wrong time. And this international break, it's not the end of the world for Germany. You play Luxembourg, which with all due respect, they should be beaten regardless. We need him. We need Nick Woltemade. We need him here. We haven't got him here, and that's a real shame. And without being a bit obsessive, because this player's all in the past now, but I'm sure you guys will be a bit amused to see the Alexander Isak comments over the past couple of days, because it's been described that he still hasn't reached his peak fitness yet. He still needs upwards of 3 months to be able to start playing well for Liverpool. Hang on, isn't this a £130 million signing? Why are we acting like this guy's never kicked the ball before? I've even seen Liverpool fans describing Isak as being, well, needing to adapt to the Premier League. Well, what do you think he's been doing for Newcastle? And this gaslighting and this rubbish from the Liverpool media is mental, because it's not. I don't even think it's a fitness thing, really. Look at Isak and look at his end of his time at Newcastle. Has he had a good game since our cup final, which was back in March? Has he actually played well since March? I don't think he has, and you've still got media coming out and saying that this guy's unfit, this guy's still injured, he needs a couple more months to gel it together. Hang on, you're £130 million signing. You're supposed to be playing well from the second you kick a ball, and he scored 1 goal, which, with all due respect, was a goal against Southampton. So you can't even see he's started well at all. With Nick Woltemade started better, and I think the majority of brand new signs, hell, even Benjamin Sesko, I think, started better than Isak. And it's a weird thing in the Liverpool media, and maybe I shouldn't be talking about this in the video, but I just felt like it was hilarious the way everyone's describing like Isak's this unfit striker who's just ready to kick it on. Like, he was rubbish before he left Newcastle. Don't get me started with this now. He's a player that's clearly out of form. He's a player that's clearly not delivering so far, and I think the media is almost painting that out to be something else. Well, if you were fit and if you were playing, if you were training for Newcastle, you would have been able to kick it on straight away for a different football club. He's only got himself to blame, and I think his form's honking. I think his form is terrible, and I think that's a big factor of why he hasn't even scored in the Premier League or Champions League yet for Liverpool. As for some of our players who are out in international duty, Sandro Tonali has spoken to Italian sources, not ruling out that he would return to Italian football one day. Maybe not now, he said, but the Serie A's rise and the teams are getting better. And I think deep down as a Newcastle fan, we all kind of know Sandro Tonali is probably not going to be here for too much longer. And that's the reality you have when you've got such a world-class player like him. This is now his second fantastic year. I know it's his third year at Newcastle, but he's had a full year out with the gambling ban. Unbelievable season last year. Unbelievable season again this year. If you don't have Champions League football, you're always going to struggle to keep a player like him. And these are players, well, I think the way he left AC Milan, without going into any of the betting side of it, but he's a player that probably didn't want to leave AC Milan. So if he ever got an opportunity to go back to his boyhood club, he's going to take it. You can't deny that he wouldn't. It'll be a shame when that day happens. But again, you kind of see with the Isak situation where Newcastle can benefit from a huge sale. You get a ridiculous amount of money for a player. What's stopping us from... I don't want to do, but what's stopping Newcastle from letting Tonali go straight away, get Eddie Anderson back, you got him, Bruno, Joelinton, you sign a non-midfielder as well, probably, if you want to try and upgrade in Joelinton, but there are options out there, and I think Gordon and Tonali, they're probably the two players I'll be keeping an eye on the summer coming up. I think all the other players, you'll be comfortable enough keeping a hold of them, but especially Gordon with the Liverpool interest a couple of years ago, and Tonali every single summer, the amount of demand he's going to have is always going to be quite high. So those two players you're always going to be fighting to keep a hold of every single summer. You've seen it earlier in the week with his polls scores, bigging up and saying that Tonali's better than Declan Rice. I don't think he's better than Declan Rice, by the way. But you're already seeing it in the media. They've done everything in their power last season to get Isak out of Newcastle every single week, gaslighting the player up, bigging him up to be the best striker on the planet, going into him every single week. They do it to Tonali. I wouldn't be surprised every single week if you see this now at Tonali. These media pages, these opposition players doing everything to get these class players out of Newcastle and to get them sold elsewhere, because you just see this constantly from the media. They try their best to force these moves through, and Tonali, you're always going to have a problem with him because he's such a good player. I think deep down he is going to be on a short shelf life. I think at most you probably got one more full season after this, I reckon. I think at that point you probably know he's going to eventually go, especially if these Italian teams start knocking on the door with big money. We'll see what happens though. Not the most convincing comments from Tonali though, especially as a Newcastle fan. That's got me twitching a little bit. But going on talking to the other players, of course, Joelinton and Bruno have also had a nightmare just like me. I think their nightmare's even worse than mine because they were on a flight heading over to Seoul, of course, South Korea. I've had a chance to go on there this summer, and that is a long arse flight. And they've had to turn the plane back around to Amsterdam because one of the windows in the plane went out. They've had to flip the entire plane around, go back to Amsterdam, new plane, head back out to Seoul. And it's still mad saying this, but Bruno and Joelinton for the Brazilian national team. Joelinton, J7 playing for the Brazilian national team. You never in a million years would have imagined that, would you, under the Steve Bruce days. He was such a honking number 9 up front, and just to see him transform as a beast of a midfielder, fair play to him. I think in terms of Newcastle United players at this club, Joelinton and Kieran Trippier, those two are probably, I reckon, the two best stories in terms of a player actually being able to achieve success here. Trippier, of course, your first signing since Tago came right into the deep end and was the first one. Yes, you could have said he earned a lot of money at the time, but he joined the 19th in the league, Newcastle, when he already had Champions League football at Madrid. He just won La Liga with Madrid, and he took a gamble coming back home. With, at the time, his wife came back home, and hell, look how good he's been at Newcastle. I actually put a post about him a couple of days ago, and he had the chance to like the post as well, so I'm glad he was able to see my appreciation towards him. And I think my post was fair because you got to look at the stats this season. Newcastle's got 5 clean sheets out of 7 games, and a 35-year-old Trippier is playing 3 times a week. You got to see his fitness levels are immense, his technical ability is still quality. While he's not the same player he was when he first came to Newcastle, he's still got it. He's still got it. I'll continue to praise him as long as he plays well because he is in tip-top condition and his form is outstanding as well. So I think him and Joelinton, they've got the 2 best stories at Newcastle, and the fact that those 2 continue to impress and play well, wow, good players, and I'm glad they're here, and I hope they stay here for a long time yet. Well, there we have it. I hope you have enjoyed today, and I hope you've enjoyed the Benidorm disaster. Only I could book up a 4-day holiday where 2 days is an actual red crisis storm. How is that possible? At least we've had 2 good days, I suppose. You could have had 0 good days and could have just had 4 days of a storm. So at least we've had 2 warm, enjoyable days out here. But now it's a bit of a nightmare, and the flight might not even get back home, depending on how the airport is. I'll probably assume that surely the runway is going to be cleared up with any water before the time we get back. If you don't mind me, I'm going to go to the shop and buy some equipment and make sure that I'm all sorted out. Only joking, but I'm going to go out and watch the England game in a bit. God knows how the ship's going to be doing, but we're going to head out anyway. And you guys, tomorrow we're going to just see a mental vlog where you're going to see Storm Alice on the channel. Didn't think I'd be doing these sort of videos, but yeah, we are. If you hear that in the background. But yeah, Storm Alice on the channel tomorrow. You will see it as we watch Nick Woltemade take on Luxembourg. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you all in the next one.